But we're going to go ahead and get started. We have two great presenters today, and it's all about the front-end editor. We'll pretty much just drop your questions. Why Meetup? Why? Yeah.
That was supposed to be meetup.com, by the way, not our Meetup.
No, yeah. I don't know why Meetup does this to us. But it's great to see everyone here, and we're going to get started. I want to make sure I can find everyone. There's a lot of people here. Our first presenter is Anne. She's going to introduce herself, and we're going to get started. Can you unmute yourself?
She should have.
She can't. Yeah, she should be able to. Hold on. Oh, that might be my fault. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I was about to start talking to myself. Awesome. So I'm Anne McCarty. I work for Automattic, and I recorded a presentation for you all about full site editing. We'll display it now. So I give an intro in the talk as well, so I won't bore you with the details, but there will be a section to ask questions at the end. So please know that while you can't interrupt me, I definitely want you all to save your questions, and I will try to answer them as I go. I also will be dropping links in the chat that correspond with the presentation. So as the presentation's going and you see links from me, they correspond with the section of the presentation that it's referring to. So hopefully that's helpful for you all to follow up with after the fact.
Yeah, and again, just a reminder, you can drop questions and stuff inside the Zoom chat. Just make sure it starts with a Q and a colon. All right, so here we go.
Howdy. To start, thanks so much for having me. This is a presentation about full site editing. I'm very excited to talk with you. This is a feature I've been thinking a lot about over the last year. And
is that loud enough?
I'm excited to share with you all. And I'm also really keen to learn from each of you what you're worried about, what you're excited about, how you think full siting can improve your workflows, and more. So this is pre-recorded because I wanted to make sure, with so much information going around, wanted to make sure I had all the details lined up. And so I could pause and rework certain sections, but please know that I welcome questions. So while you can't interrupt me during the presentation, there will be a whole section at the end. Pull out your pen and paper, write them down, and know that they're very, very welcomed. But for now, let's dig in. So briefly about me, I'm actually originally from Warren Park, Florida, so I haven't been home in about 1.5 years. And thank you for letting me virtually return home by participating in this meetup. In 2011, I first found WordPress as a student at UNC Chapel Hill. I worked on their multi-site, had a great time. 2013, went to my first ever WordCamp. 2014, joined Automattic as a happiness engineer, focused on vault press, and had a great time focusing on security of websites. And it gave me a really interesting look into concerns people have about websites that most people don't think about. And then 2020, I switched into the developer relations position at Automattic and have been there ever since. So let's get meta and talk about the talk. So to start, I'm going to zoom out really big and then slowly put pieces together until we kind of get a nice map of what full siting is and with all the details. So this will look kind of like first answering some big high level questions, digging into then how the work is actually being done. So going from like high level, what is this? Why does it help me? To how is this work actually being approached? What are the pieces of the work that I need to know? The role of the outreach program. And then I want to address some key topics and questions that I often get asked when I've presented at other places and talked on other podcasts about full siting or just one-on-one with people. I love to talk about full siting. So hopefully some of the key topics and questions can help get people thinking about other things they want to ask about. So let's dig into the first big picture question. Why is this being done at all? Simply put, it's to empower users. Rather than having a specific part of the site locked away in a theme or requiring a plugin, full siting will basically open it up to customize any part of your site the way you want to. Or on the flip side, you can let it be, or if you're an agency, you could lock certain sites down or certain parts of a site down, depending upon how you want users to have access. So it's a pretty powerful, big mission to actually deliver on full site editing. So I answered, why is this being done? Now let's dig into how does this fit into the WordPress roadmap. So full siting is a major part of phase 2 of the current roadmap. It's not the only part though. There's actually other interrelated projects, including things like block patterns, the block directory, block-based themes. So it's just one piece of this larger roadmap, but it's one of the major grounding points of phase 2 of the roadmap. So what is full site editing at a high level? Essentially, it's a collection of features, and it's important that you get the collection part. But it's a collection of features that bring the familiar experience of blocks to all parts of your site, rather than just posts and pages. But Anne, what does a collection of features mean? Basically, I've noticed people tend to refer to full site editing as one big thing. It's like an on-off switch. It's this monolith. And it's actually not. It's not this binary thing. It's actually way more, it's way better to talk about how there's different pieces that fit together and interrelate, because it actually gives flexibility for release squads to release what's ready rather than all of it at once. So while it might be easier to talk about how it's this one big thing, I encourage you all to kind of think about the different pieces if you can. And I'll touch on this more in a bit. Okay, so what does full site editing actually allow me to do, right? So cool, Anne, you collection of features, but like, show me the money. So this is an example of a 404 page. So 404 page, typically you're not actually able to edit. But with full site editing, you could actually create this 404 page. And this was actually done by one of the Automattic designers, Channing. Shout out to Channing. She did this as part of one of the tests for full site editing, the outreach program. So it's a pretty beautiful thing. While we all might not have the design chops that Channing does, it is pretty neat to see kind of a very tangible hands-on example of what full site editing unlocks you to be able to do. To get more specific, basically if you're a user, imagine editing the template that a specific post has for a specific category. For theme authors, you'll be able to tap into design tools that'll allow you to focus more on actually creating a really compelling experience and less on getting the code in place and hacking things up. And you can also opt in and out of whatever you're ready for, which is really exciting. But ideally for theme authors, this is going to be a huge change. It'll allow creating themes to be much, much easier. If you're an agency, you'll have greater control over what you can offer clients, including setting custom brand colors with presets, to locking down various aspects for consistency, such as typography or wanting only certain default colors to be used. So how is this work being done? So rather than trying to go through everything in one go, this project has actually been broken down into 7 different milestones. And some of these milestones are completely separate, their own thing. Some are very interrelated, some mix and match in different ways. But we're going to go through each of them so you can get a sense of how this is being done. I'm going to try to stay at a high level and before going into a very brief demo midway through the presentation, but hopefully this will give you a sense of what this looks like. So milestone 1, this is actually such a big milestone that it was broken into 2 parts. And essentially this is all about laying the foundation. Everything from multi-entity saving, which is actually being displayed here in the GIF that you see, where you can actually update multiple things at once, including like a template part, like you update your header, you update a post, and you update your footer. It'll show all the changes happening and allow you to check and uncheck different boxes to save. Basically just think about this as building the foundation of the experience, the technical foundation, unlocking things like being able to edit a template directly, to working on specific blocks for full site editing, like the site title. So we have a site title block and it updates everywhere you have it listed. Milestone 2, browsing. Again, there's another little visual so you can see what this actually looks like. This is basically giving you a map and a GPS to know your location, how to get where you need to go for your site. So because there are these new parts of editing your site that are unlocked with full site editing, like template editing and template parts like a header or footer, there needs to be a way to navigate between them. So this milestone is dedicated to that. How can we make it as easy as possible for you to get where you need to go? Milestone 3, styling. So this actually covers a couple different layers, and I'm going to break it down in this slide and then the next one to help give you a sense visually of what this looks like. But this includes everything from the technical requirements to make various levels work and the UI for users. So you can actually see a depiction of the future design for the UI that users will interact with in the image right here. So there's generally 3 layers, including styling for local blocks, theme defaults, and then global modifications, or what we often call global styles. You can think of global styles as basically having the option to edit all aspects of your site. So if you want to set a typography that goes across your entire site, if you want to have certain colors for all H1 headers, you can set that up with global styles. Currently, much of the work has been focused on the technical underpinnings, especially around aspects like theme JSON, which is a very key component for block themes and a really big tool for block block theme authors. But for 5.8, the focus is generally going to be on merging the non-user interface parts of global styles. So don't expect to interact with this system unless you're a theme author. If you are a theme author, get really excited. And here's a little visual just so you can get a sense of it. So these are the different layers that have to interact in the styling system and the hierarchy that needs to be thought of when working on this milestone. Milestone 4, theme blocks. So because full siting opens up so many more aspects of the site to edit, new blocks had to be created basically. So if you're creating a new template for a specific category and you're putting in post content and you want to add the post author block, which you can see here, you can quickly add it in, customize it to your liking, add in post comment, add in post date, or remove the post date. You can edit each parts of these things. What's pretty exciting about this is that there's actually 20 plus blocks that fall into this category. And if all goes as planned, some of those will be released for 5.8 and available potentially for all sites. So even if you're not using a block theme, you could have access to these theme blocks, which is pretty powerful and pretty cool. Query block. So the query block has its own milestone because it's a pretty powerful block. It's ultimately meant to be a theme author tool. So in the long run, if you're a user, imagine that you'll interact with what we call block variations, which basically are just like different variations of a block, as the name implies. But imagine you want to add in your latest post. You'll add the latest post block, but underneath it, what will be powering that experience of adding your latest post will be the query block. And essentially, as the name implies, it allows you to query posts and pages and display them in different arrangements on the page. I'm very excited, actually, in Gutenberg 10.5, which will be released in just about 2 weeks. There's going to be some new patterns. You can see right here, large, medium, small are the current selection of patterns that you have for the query block. But pretty soon, there's going to be like a grid pattern and a couple other cool ones, which is pretty exciting. Generally speaking, though, if you're an end user, don't expect to interact with this. If you're a theme author, get excited. Navigation block. Again, this is just a single block, but don't be fooled. It's definitely a mighty one. So this milestone is dedicated to all things navigation block, both in terms of structure and design. And you can see in this little GIF I have going on, I'm just kind of making little design changes and moving things around so you can get a sense of what it's like to interact with this block. And it actually includes, this milestone actually includes everything from how do you build a really simple menu with a few items to thinking about how to create a really large mega menu and add in new blocks like the search block that you can see here, or even adding submenus, different designs, different layouts, and more. So the last piece of the milestones is the gradual adoption. And I hope this gift makes you laugh, but also seriously, this is like the intent is like, we slowly want people to be able to adapt in the way that they can. And once more of these pieces are completed, there's basically a ton of room to start exploring how adoption might look like for those who can't or don't want to restructure a full theme. So this might be an intermix of block-based themes and regular PHP templates, or it might be covered by projects like the block-based widget editor and the navigation screen. Both of those projects I'll cover later, but for now, just keep in mind that this is intentionally a milestone. We want to allow for gradual adoption and want people to have lots of pathways in to taking advantage of full site editing. So what's coming to WordPress 5.8? So just last week, a post went out from Josefa, who is the executive director of the WordPress project. And I want to read a quote from it just to kind of set the tone and give you a sense. So full siting is a collection of projects, and together they represent a big change, arguably too much for a single release. The most important context to share is that it isn't shipping as the full default experience for users. One of the clearest pieces of feedback from phase 1 merge process was that there wasn't enough time for our extenders, agencies, theme authors, plugin developers, site builders, etc., to prepare for the upcoming changes. With that in mind, this merge process won't be an on-off switch. And you can see I've bolded very specific parts that I hope you take home with you. All right, so let's talk WordPress 5.8 plans. This is up-to-date information as of today. A post was released from Josefa on Make Core if you'd like to check it out. And from the call that the project leadership had, this is what they came up with for the 5.8 plans. This includes improvements from Gutenberg 9.9 and beyond. So we always package different versions of Gutenberg into major releases. This release is no different. There'll be an introduction of new blocks, including query, site logo, navigation, etc. These are each very powerful blocks, very exciting to see. Theme JSON mechanism, this is part of what allows block themes to use different global styling, which will be very cool for block authors to get their hands on. The template editor for pages and a blank template. I'll actually be showing a demo of this in a moment, so hang tight there, but it'll all make sense in a bit. The widget screen and block widgets in the customizer. This is basically work being done to bring blocks to the widgets experience. I will talk more about that later, about how it's a stepping stone towards full-site editing. And then finally, design tools. So even more design tools that people can hook into, including duotone, which adds a really cool color filter, layout controls, padding, and more. So at this point, let's pause for a minute and actually show off one of the features that is aimed to be included in 5.8. I'm going to show you template editing, the navigation block, and just some of the cool flows with multi-entity saving and some of the things that we talked about that will make it into this release. So I'm in the post editor. I have a new post. I love to blog and write and present. I hit update, super happy, whatever. Open up the post settings, and there's this new section that allows you to both create a brand new template, and this will ideally be used both in themes that are block-based themes, so they're ready for full citing, and potentially for classic themes. There's actually work underway so that this will be available in any theme being used on WordPress right now. So right now, if I hit edit, this will take me into the template that this post is using. So let's do that now. So as you can see, this drops me in to what looks like the entire site. So you can see I have my header up here, I have the footer down here, and I can make changes directly to them. So for example, if I jump in here, this is the navigation block, and I haven't yet set it up. So I can say add all pages, and I can start empty. In this case, I'll say, you know what, let's start empty. And let's say I want to add a custom link. And one of the cool things you can actually do, you can quickly select from here, or let's say I want to add a new post. Oh, let me first select post link. So adventures around the world. Let's pretend I'm just inspired while I'm writing this. I can actually create a draft post, which is pretty cool. And it'll show up here. It will not show up on the front end since it's a draft, but it actually creates a page draft for this with this title automatically. So let's say, you know, I'm scrolling through here, I'm going, oh, this looks pretty good. Actually, I kind of want to see what it looks like if I add an image to the post here. Pull up an image block, open my media library. Hammocks. Can't get enough of hammocks. Gonna throw that in there. Great. So at this point, I've made changes to the actual header. I've made changes to the post. I'm just gonna apply and see what happens. So this is the multi-entity saving that I mentioned earlier. Now, as you can see, it has a section for posts. So it's saying, hey, you edited this post. And it has a section saying, hey, you edited the header. So at this point, I'm gonna hit save because I want both those changes to propagate. And now I'm back into my post, into the writing flow, and I can easily switch back and forth. I can also select a new one. But yeah, hopefully this gives you a good sense of one of the key parts that's being worked on for inclusion in 5.8. There will be a demo later, but this is just a taste. To help set the stage for what you can prepare for, here are some upcoming dates to keep in mind. If you're like me, time is moving really strangely, so I like to have dates to kind of anchor me. Feel free to take a screenshot of this or write it down. If you'd like. So April 13th and April 27th, these are the go and no-go decision dates. So right now, project leadership actually has gathered. So you might notice if you are good with dates and good with time right now, April 13th has come and gone. So this date has passed and project leadership has met actually to go through different FSE related features and projects to figure out what might be ready for 5.8. I would expect to see more high-level posts throughout the month, especially after the second date, the April 27th date. That's when final decisions will be made around 5.8. Then if all goes well, the beta period for WordPress 5.8 will start on June 8th. So people can actually start getting their hands on the tools that are going to be in place in the actual release and testing it and finding bugs and improving things from there. And July 20th is the actual date of WordPress 5.8 and when it's released. This is being considered as an open beta where theme authors, plugin authors, agencies, and more can dig into the tools that are being offered and that I went over previously. And then in December 2021, that's around the time when WordPress 5.9 will be released. And this is when I expect to move from tools for extenders into tools actually for users and more user-facing interactions with full citing and having things unlocked in the interface that previously in 5.8 most users won't notice and won't interact with. In 5.9, I expect that to be more visible. So some key takeaways. I know this is a lot of information. So only what's ready from the various milestones will be shipped. This is not an on-off switch and it won't take over your site. the focus right now is on giving tools to extenders first before user-facing changes. And that's a big lesson that was learned from the 5.0 merge, where Gutenberg and the core editor was brought into the WordPress experience. And this is something that thankfully we're in a position where, because of these interrelated projects, we're able to move in a more flexible and adaptable way to release what's ready and not anything else. All right, at this point, let's jump into the full siting outreach program. As a reminder, this is the program that I actually run. So consider this free reign to ask me whatever question you'd like, because I think probably too much about this program, but it's something I'm really excited to talk to you about. And I think it's a really neat vehicle for both feedback and education about full site editing. So let's go over some big picture questions, kind of like we did earlier on, and just get the details out of the way. So let's start. What is it? So essentially, it's just a program focused on full siting. It's in the form of a Slack channel right now. I'll go over how to join it in a bit, but it has curated calls for testing, summary posts of the feedback that we get, and various educational opportunities that you can hop in on, mainly in the form of live streams. I'm running some hallway hangouts, which are basically just Zoom calls. People can come in and we can talk about full site editing. What's the goal? So the goal is pretty simple: help improve full siting experience by gathering feedback from WordPress site builders. While the group originally started solely to be about feedback, there's actually this really neat educational component that has come up as the feature has developed and as more people have gotten curious about it. So people can join just to build their own awareness about what's happening with full siting and kind of just look at a glance, or just help amplify the posts that are coming through. Why was it started? So I'm going to quote Josefa from the kickoff post. During the WordPress 5.0 retrospective, which is when Gutenberg was merged and the core editor was merged, one of the things that came up routinely was the need for better engagement with users. It was generally agreed from all levels and area of contribution that users would be most impacted by Gutenberg, but the users were also the group we had the least channels of communication to. To help get user feedback to WordPress developers a little bit more seamlessly, I'm going to try an experimental outreach program. So basically, this is a lesson that was learned from the 5.0 release. And in order to prevent another situation where people are caught by surprise, this program is in place to help people get excited and on-ramped and onboarded onto full siting, as well as getting feedback so that we know if a major workflow change is coming into play, we can actually get user feedback to make it a little bit easier. All right, at this point, I bet you're just so stoked, you're ready to dive in. Awesome. All you got to do is join FSC Outreach Experiment and make WordPress Slack, and then you're all set. You'll just get a bunch of annoying pings from me with prompts for how to test, interesting posts related to full site editing, and more. I promise it's also not as scary as this dive, which looks absolutely terrifying, but also beautiful. So because we've done, at this point, we're on our 5th call for testing, I want to go over some high-level pieces of feedback that we've actually gotten about the experience so far. And basically across all the calls for testing, these are repeated themes that have come up, but keep in mind that because there are certain aspects that we actually haven't tested, so global styles, for example, the UI isn't available really for users and it's not refined for users. So it's not something that we've had as a focus part of testing, even though there is a UI that is available. So certain things are left out purely because they aren't necessarily ready for testing, but these are the top pieces of feedback, so bear with me. Previewing content. Publish a post, you want to go preview it, or you're editing a post, you want to go preview the content. The same thing is true with full site editing. This is a big thing that kept coming up. And my question is this a necessary workflow? Or is it a symptom of other problems? Because in general, it should be, the site editor should be as WYSIWYG as what you see as what you get as possible. So if you're making a change, it should look exactly the same as the front end of your site. And because it doesn't right now, it's causing this tension. There actually is a preview site option under discussion, as well as a browse mode option, which basically would turn off, if you're actually editing your site, it would turn off everything that wouldn't actually show up on the front end. So if you only have one page of posts, but you have pagination set up, so if you had multiple pages, that would actually go away. So as you can imagine, this is currently up for discussion, but there actually are a couple different pathways to try and address this problem, but it's a very important one to address. Saving process. I like to say it's technically reliable, but not yet delightful. So basically, it's left a lot to be desired right now, and it's resulted in a fair bit of confusion. There's a lot of feature requests and enhancements and bugs that have come up related to saving. And this is likely because the multi-entity saving aspect that I demoed earlier is very new for WordPress users. It's not something we're used to having as part of our workflow. So it's something that inherently needs some work on. So whether it was, people requesting more granular saving options to show specifically what was being changed, to issues with saving for screen readers, to confusion around even just what the general parts mean, like what you're actually selecting or unselecting, this was definitely a big, big area of feedback. Distinction between editing areas. So basically, because you can edit all parts of your site, it's hard to know, like, am I editing the header for all of my site, or am I editing just a specific piece of content on a post? And this kind of distinction, jumping between different levels of like, oh, you're changing this will change everything, to you're just changing this one thing in this one spot, is pretty tricky. And right now there's not a lot of friction, and there's not a lot of clarity in the actual experience to show when you're actually jumping between those different levels. So this was a big piece that's come up, and it's something that is an active area of iteration and exploration to kind of get the right amount of friction in place. So rethinking with an alignment. Previously, alignment and full siting worked to optimize how traditional themes worked, where they basically traditional themes provide their own alignment styles. And this worked okay for the project up until this point. But recently, work has been shipped to reimagine how this dynamic should work to allow for actually more control over alignments and width when using the site editor. And this should actually help make sure that whether you want something that's full width or you want to change the actual width of your content that's showing up, that it'll actually be what you see is what you get. And right now, this is another piece of feedback at a high level that's impacted that what you see is what you get experience. General usability improvements. I admit this is totally a catch-all, and it covers a ton of stuff, but it's actually a very important one to think of, because it'll actually move the site editing experience from being just functional to actually delightful, which is really exciting. And there's a ton of issues that are included in this, including some enhancement requests, bug reports, all that good stuff. One of my favorites to talk about is creating a background image on a template part. So imagine you have a header, you're working on it, you're super excited, and you're almost done, and then you're like, oh, do you know what would be really cool is if I had like mountains in the background. Maybe I'll add like a cover block in the background and add an image and set the opacity pretty low, but have mountains going in the background of this site. That's really hard to do. You basically would have to delete everything and add the block in and then add everything back. So those are the kinds of experiences that we're trying to improve right now. Improving placeholders. So placeholders, especially for some of the newer blocks, are a powerful way to both guide people and a current point of confusion. So you probably saw this with the navigation block earlier, where it had those little gray boxes. It's like, how do we explain to people, hey, this is something you have to set up and engage with, but here's generally what it will look like and what it will do. And the feedback for this mainly came into play with the query block, social icon block, featured image block, and the navigation block. Each currently actually also get users started in different ways. So not only are there different placeholders for different experiences, the actual experience of interacting with the placeholders are all pretty inconsistent right now. So I think in the long run, it seems that users will benefit a bunch from a standardized, consistent way to interact with placeholder content, so that it becomes a really familiar interaction when you're working with a more powerful block. And this especially is true for the query block and navigation block. Okay. Now that we've covered the milestones, the outreach program, high-level pieces of feedback, I'm going to quickly run through some key topics that I imagine you're going to have questions about. And just because I cover them here does not mean I don't want to answer questions. So please don't see this as a sign that you can also still ask questions about these topics. This is just what I've been hearing from folks. Will full siting take over my site? Hopefully by this point, you all can say no in a resounding way. But no, this is not something that's going to all of a sudden on-off switch, you upgrade to 5.8, it takes everything over. Not at all. You very much have to opt into it through using a theme, a block theme that supports actually these features. And in time, more pathways are going to be built as well, so that when you're actually using full siting, you'll likely be using pieces and not all of it. So you could just be using the query block, or you could just be using global styles without it taking over your entire site. What about the block-based navigation and widget screens? Like, what's the deal there? So in case you missed it, there's actually 2 additional projects that are dedicated to bringing blocks to more areas of the site outside of full site editing. And this includes the navigation screens, you can build out menus, and the widget screens, you can build out your widget sections. And this is pretty powerful and high impact work, and they're both separate projects that are tangential to full siting, but you can think of them as stepping stones, basically. So you could have a theme that is a classic theme, but it uses a block-based widget screen so that people can have the power of blocks with their widgets. And essentially the whole point, like I said, it's a stepping stone to get people used to using blocks in more places. Site builders. This is, I could write a thesis about this because there's so much to talk about here. I imagine I'm going to get questions about this. But essentially full siting is being built partially so people don't get stuck or locked into one site builder or another, It's also being built in a way that site builders can actually hook into what's being created if they choose to. I've heard from a lot of folks, though, that they expect full siting to actually fully replicate their favorite site builders functionality. And I'm here to say that while the goals between full siting and site builders are pretty similar in terms of empowering users and giving better tools to customize a site, the difference is that we're building for 40% of the internet. And we're building even for site builders, where site builders have a much more targeted approach. And in the future, I do think there will always be room for specific takes of how to have an ideal site editing experience, whether that's like geared to a specific group, like a marketing style approach, or if you want to have things locked down, or if you want to have things opened up. But generally speaking, full siting is meant to actually expand the way WordPress as a whole uses blocks. So don't expect it to fully replicate any sort of site builder, your favorite site builder, essentially. How is this going to impact themes? So in the long run, this should actually make theme development much easier. And I think Marcus's demonstration later will show that. And much simpler, especially with the design tools that will be essentially ready at your fingertips to tap into. And ideally, because of what's being released, it should allow theme authors to focus less on coding and functions and more on design aesthetics, integrating block patterns and all that good stuff. But because one of the key things I wanted to really drive home in this section, though, is that because full siting requires a block-based theme or a theme with certain functionality enabled, this makes theming extremely important to get right. So I've heard people say like, oh, themes are a thing of the past. It's very much not true. I'd actually argue the opposite. The theme is almost key to this experience, to having it be delightful and having it make sense. What pathways are going to be created? I know I've talked a lot about pathways this entire time, but it is the entire focus of the final milestone for full siting. So expect a lot of pathways. For now, this includes everything from having a classic theme that can take advantage of global styles to template editing or a block-based widget screen. This also includes things like allowing certain full siting related blocks to be available for users, regardless of if they're using a classic theme or a block theme. Or enabling the ability to edit block templates directly, kind of like I showed in the demo earlier. So there's going to be a ton of options here, and I'm actually really excited to see what happens once 5.8 kind of sparks the creativity of the community, because I imagine both that people will create their own pathways and start experimenting, and we'll also get a very clear sense of, hey, I actually really need X, Y, and Z pathway, and we'll get a sense of demand from the community of core, which is super exciting to have. What's the best way to prepare? So this depends on who you are. So depending on who you are at a high level, this is what I recommend. Join the FSC Outreach Program. I know this is the thing that I run. I'm very biased, but seriously, join it. I think it's really, really helpful to get a sense both of feedback, what's being currently iterated on, and just general education opportunities. If you're a theme author, I really recommend checking out the Theme Experiments repo and joining the block-based theme meetings to learn about the latest and greatest, because lots of good information is shared there. In general, too, it's often also helpful to join the weekly core editor meetings because there's regular updates about the projects and PRs people are working on. And finally, pay attention to upcoming content on Learn WordPress, because I think there's going to be a ton of stuff coming up about full siting, depending upon what's scoped for 5.8 and 5.9, including building a block-based theme, for example, that will really help, I think, everyone level up. All right, so we're at the very end. And at this point, if you want to stay connected with me or you have follow-up questions after this talk, I very much welcome them. You can find me on WordPress Slack at @AnnZazu, or you can reach me at my site, nomad.blog. I will also try and drop my Automattic email address separately. I just don't want to on a live presentation in case you want to follow up directly via email. I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Facebook, and I'm on and off of Instagram, so please don't try to contact me those ways. Finally, I just want to say thanks so much for your time. Let's hear your questions at this point. I'm really excited to hear what you all are thinking and curious about. I do want to say I don't know everything, but I can find anything. And I've talked with David about how we can follow up after this presentation to get you all information and answers that you all want to questions that I might not be able to answer. So at this point, I'm going to pass it off to live and current Ann and give a high five from past Ann. And we're done. Live and current Ann is here.
Oh, that was awesome.
Thanks so much for entertaining me with the recorded video. I was really excited to be able to share links as we went and to be able to share the video afterwards. So
I'm glad you recorded that, because I'm afraid if you did that live at that pace.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you might want to slow me down on watching YouTube videos.
Switch to decaf.
I saw some questions come in that I'm happy to jump into right now. Is that cool with y'all?
Sure, I can find them for you if you want, or did you see them?
A guy.
I saw him, yeah.
Guy's going to chime in. And Joe, if
Perfect.
you see anything that Guy misses, let me know, and Guy will let me know when we've exhausted our questions.
No
All right,
problem.
yeah, I wrote down timestamps and the questions I saw. All right, well, thank you so much, Anne, by the way.
Yeah.
So you mentioned participation and feedback. For someone who hasn't helped on a make team yet, what kinds of things will they be able to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in this case, the Full Citing Outreach program is less of a make team and more of just an outreach effort. It's more casual than that, and people can jump in and out as they have time. But essentially, it's set up where you can actually go through calls for testing that I've specifically written, so that whether you're someone who's super advanced or someone who's brand new, you can hopefully go through these flows. I actually typically include combination of GIFs, screenshots, videos of me walking through the test, so it makes it really easy. And I also welcome pings. I was actually helping a couple people today with the current call for testing. But generally speaking, it's just a matter of participating in the calls for testing when you can. I also share latest posts and kind of more the educational pieces that I talked about. So if someone's doing a Twitch stream, we'll highlight it. But yeah, it's more about just being present in the Slack channel. And I will basically just send you pings for you to follow up on and engage with as you can. But it's everything from if you have 10 minutes to if you have a couple hours, I appreciate it all. So.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
One of the things for the calls for testing too, we're not looking for experts in any regard. So Anne will just say like, oh, here's an area we're looking at. The last one was a query block, and any testing that you can do, you can just say like, oh, this whole thing just confuses me greatly, and pass that feedback back to Anne. It's a great way to channel feedback, because then Anne will talk with the developers, or she'll create an issue, or, you know, she can raise it to other people. So you don't have to try and find like, oh, who's working on this or who's doing that. And you can channel all that back. And it's a great way to just test things out, to say like, okay, here's what's coming. Here's how it's working now. And then, you know, your comment might filter up to a designer or a developer, and they might change it based on hearing that feedback too. So that's what a call for testing is intended to. It's for anyone to just jump in, test, and see how things are working.
All right, great. Another question came in from Sean. He was saying that I think a preview will always make sense, though what if we could combine the editor with the preview so that you never have to switch between the two?
Yeah, so I think Sean was both asking a question and and probably also he's worked a lot on this and has a lot of opinions about this, so it's fun to hear from him. But yeah, that's one of the big pieces right now, is there's a combination of having preview included. There's an idea of a browse mode that I mentioned, where it'll actually turn off the parts of your site when you're in the site editor that are not actually going to be live on the front end, so you can get an actual live sense of what that looks like. Ultimately, going forward though, full citing should be very what you see is what you get. So there is this tension between how do you make it so it's something that you can build, but you're not constantly switching between, and what can we do to have tools that actually allow you to not have to switch between, because you can just toggle an on-off switch in your actual site editing experience. So there's a couple of different options right there. I don't actually know which way this will go. Helen, who was one of the people who was on the project leadership call this week, did an amazing 3-hour-long full citing deep dive on Twitch. I'll drop a link to that in a second. And that was one of the big things that she's brought up as being pretty concerned about wanting to have resolved. So I anticipate a lot of effort around that.
All right, I have another question for you. What is one feature or change to the user experience in full site editing that you are most excited about?
Yeah, this one is tough. I would say, and this is kind of a complex answer, so there's block patterns coming, right? Where you can basically, rather than having individual blocks that are, you know, you're adding them one at a time to build something, you actually can add like a whole set of things to create a unified experience, kind of like maybe a call for action or a header or what have you. But there's also work being done to integrate block patterns into specific, more complex blocks. So the query block, for example, will have different options so that you can set up like a grid of posts. Same thing with the navigation block. There's some work looking at how we could possibly integrate patterns into that. And to me, that's the most exciting piece. I think unifying those two things, taking the really complex blocks and integrating them with the power of block patterns, will create a really delightful, awesome, powerful experience for users to plug and play and move quickly with the block editor and everything that's been done foundationally. So.
All right, and I have a follow-up question to that.
Mm-hmm.
What feature do you think relatively new users to WordPress might find most exciting?
New users to WordPress. I'm trying to think of, like, when you say new users, I'm assuming a level of like not technical abilities. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, I'm thinking not developers.
Cool. Yeah, I would say the new blocks. I think one of the neat things about it is that there's 20 different new blocks that normally aspects of your site that you've never been able to edit, like your site title directly, or your site logo, like you'll be able to edit directly using the site editor in time. I'm thinking more probably 5.9 for this, but to me, that's really exciting because I'm sure, I mean, when I first got started with WordPress, it was always like, how do I edit that one little thing? And then you're clicking around the theme and going through the customizer and all that sort of stuff. And to be able to just see it right there, I almost think it'll be so powerful that new users won't even realize how cool it is. But I think that will be something that's pretty exciting.
All right. I have another question, and it might have been answered, but I'm going to hit on it anyway, just because I think the idea of participation is really needed. What types of participation, or I'm sorry, what types of participants do you need? Developers, designers, UX, accessibility, others?
All of it. And I'd actually add to that list internationalization efforts. So people who are using WordPress in different languages. Part of the outreach program, I've been able to work with people from the Japanese WordPress community, the Spanish community, and the Italian community to translate the posts into their respective languages, and which is great. It's huge help. I want to make sure we bring all of WordPress along, right? And not just the English speaking part. And so that's, I would underscore that as well. And especially underscore accessibility. That's an area that I'd love to see more people giving feedback on early on.
Fantastic. Angel asks, will these updates be available on the REST API? For example, consuming global style colors from the API to be used on a mobile app or something similar?
I don't actually know the answer to that. Marcus, do you happen to know?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's implemented yet. Most of what Gutenberg is, I would say yes, but, and I don't know what the answer to the but is. So most of Gutenberg all uses the REST API. So I'm sure there's hooks into it, but it's a matter of, is it documented well? Is it clear on how to do that externally? I'm not sure if that's been done yet, but there's also a lot of Gutenberg is being created with the mobile, and the mobile native is all kind of built within the Gutenberg repository. So I think all of this is being done, but I'm not that familiar with the mobile world. So I don't have a clear answer, but I'm pretty sure yes, but I don't know how to do it.
All right. I have a couple more questions here. Karina is asking, can you make multiple versions of template parts? Example, different headers for different sections.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the really cool things with which ultimately when all of full citing is released. Right now we're kind of working in parts. Eventually that will be something you can very easily do. And template editing will actually allow versions of this where if you're editing a specific, the single page or single post template, you can set up your own header. But yes, that's one of the really cool things that this feature set unlocks that I'm really excited about.
Excellent. Laura is asking, how easy will it be to undo? Will there be a full site editing revisions log that you can jump back for revisions if you realize you unwittingly did something?
This is such a good one. This ties into some of the feedback we've gotten around saving, and I'm going to try to not go in a spiral about this, but
we only have another 30 minutes for the live demo, Anne.
Oh, great. Awesome.
So don't go too crazy on it.
I won't go too crazy, but it is under consideration, and it's something that right now needs to be thought of very carefully because of the multi-entity saving. So it's a known issue. It's a known problem to solve. There's active iteration and too many issues I could link to about saving related to that.
All right. Let's see. Jeff is asking, today Gutenberg can be frustrating when taking a paragraph from a Word document and passing it to a block, as the WYSIWYGs seems to disappear and a lot of the formatting is lost. Is there any updates or improvements on that?
I'm curious to know. I would love to have you ping me or email me because I'd be curious to know what problems you're actually having, because that's actually a workflow. I think I saw Laura on here, but that's actually a workflow that a lot of people use to work in Google Docs or work in Word and then copy and paste. And we, generally speaking, have pretty strong conversion there. So if you're having specific issues, one issue I know of has to do with copying and pasting into specific blocks. There's some like extra markup that ends up being added, but yeah, I would love to know more about the specific issue because it sounds like you're running into something.
All right. Let's see. Nick is asking, you can edit pages and posts in the site editor, but of course you can also edit on the individual page/post pages of the admin. Do you envision all website editing moving to the site editor in the future?
Do you envision? Oh, no, I don't. I actually imagine it being something that when you're in like a building mode, you set it up and you kind of go in and you configure everything, kind of like when you're first starting a site and you configure the theme. But then the rest of the time you're just working on content. It frees you up to not worry about making those tweaks. And then maybe you're editing a post and you're like, let me go look at the template this is actually using. And you go look at the template, you make some tweaks, you save it, you return to the post editor. That's kind of how I envision it. Of course, there's going to be power users and people with different use cases that will expand it far beyond that. But again, not trying to rabbit hole.
All right. Will there be a repository for blocks and FSE components?
So in terms of like, I'm trying to understand the question.
For blocks, there would be plugins in the plugin directory. We have a block directory, and then for FSE components, is I would call them patterns, and so most likely be there's going to be a pattern directory coming. It's in the works. It's not quite ready yet, but I think the quick answer is yes on both those. One via plugins and one via patterns.
Okay, thank you.
Nope.
And Tom is asking, are there any particular site builders that you're trying to emulate or that you borrowed ideas from as far as liking the way the workflow worked or anything like that?
That's a good question. I am not the, Gutenberg, or Matthias is described as the spark of the inspiration for Gutenberg. I am not Matthias, so I can't answer that. I do know there was a lot of discussion after the core editor Gutenberg was launched back in 5.0 with page builders and site builders. And there was a lot of collaboration there. So yeah, I imagine there's a good bit of we're all trying to solve the same problem, but we're, working on WordPress core is a very different problem to solve because you're dealing with 40% of the internet, and site builders are quite frankly also part of the audience that we're trying to build for. So I can't point to a specific one.
Yeah, I would say Sean has a good response in the chat. Just the ideas come from everywhere. I know Keynote is one area that people think of ideas on how to build site builders, right? Because Keynote is the presentation tool by Apple. It's a very similar mindset of, okay, you're building a template for a theme, for a slide, and you're building content in the slide. But I think ideas come from all over the place. So I don't think there is any one specific one that people even look at.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think that wraps up the questions I have. And Anne, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, everyone give applause to Anne. Awesome.
I'm unmuted. Sorry if I was clapping on mic.
That's all right. All right. I know this is another part. This is a big part that's coming up here. We have Marcus. He's gonna give us the demo of the whole full site editor. So whenever you're ready, Marcus.
Yeah, so I'm Marcus. I work for Automattic also. I'm kind of jack of all trades. I run a team. I'm a manager. I'm a developer. But let's just jump into it and see what happens. I'm going to do a live demo and talk about a few things. I don't think I can actually see the chat when I'm sharing, so I'll get questions. Maybe at the end, I'll try and stop and maybe...
We're saving questions, and
all right.
Our usual people will be on it.
Okay, I assume everyone can see my screen. You can still hear me. All right, so first up, I'm going to do a quick demo. So a lot of things are changing just today, changing in the way that like what is coming. It was just kind of finally decided on yesterday and posted today. So this is all kind of new on what we're planning to release in 5.8. And there's also work ongoing. So you can see, I think it was this post that Anne already talked about. So this just went out today, right? Only 8 hours ago. And there's still a kind of caveat here that this is all still in the works. We still have 3 weeks before the kind of code freeze. So things will change a little bit. And so take everything with a little grain of salt. But I'm going to try and talk about one piece in here. That would be the page template editor, which we hope will make it into 5.8. It might look slightly different in the final launch version, but hopefully it'll be close. And then I'll do a quick demo on block themes, and block themes will be more fully in 5.9 in December. All right. So this is just 2019, a standard theme. And I'm running right now, I am running the Gutenberg plugin. So this is I have nothing else special that I'm running, just the latest Gutenberg plugin. And in here, we can now do the page templates, which hopefully will be out. And you can get kind of an initial introduction to kind of block-based theming. So in here, I can, under appearance, you can create a template. Anne showed one direction of going into it. I'm just going to do it in a different way. There's just different ways she had it from the post, and you click edit or new template. You can also do it from here. So under appearance templates, I have no templates. I'm going to create a new one. Let's just call this my test template. And I hate having typos, even demos. And in here, this is where you can start using, and the templates are very similar if you're familiar with WordPress themes and like kind of page templates in a WordPress theme. You can build a custom template. This is the same idea that what you're creating. And this part is just going to be the title of my template. Then inside here is going to be my full template. So I'm going to use one of the new blocks. I'm going to use a post title. And so here's like some of the new blocks that you can put in. So in post title, this will be, it's kind of a placeholder in a sense of like, this is not whatever post that you're viewing this template on, you'll see that title of that post. And then I can also put in say the post content, right? So it shows you it's a placeholder. Let's publish this. And then inside of here, this is your kind of standard, I'm gonna move it because the video's there. This is kind of just a standard Gutenberg. So you can put whatever you want in this template. You can add blocks, you can add all sorts of things. You can do, my favorite block is the social icons. Ooh, I do have it. So you can put whatever you want in there, right? And if you update, it's really not going to do anything to the site because I'm not using that template yet. So if I go to the site, and I think I have an about page, right? So this is the regular about page. If I edit it, I can then use that template under your page attributes, right? You can select the template, and this is my new template I just created. I can set that template, update it, and now when I view that page, I'm using that new template. I didn't do any style to the template, so that's why it's going edge to edge. But now anything I'd want to do in that template, I can now just show that. So people are talking about a landing page and being able to customize a new landing page and create a whole new template for that. You can design the whole thing. It can go edge to edge. I can now come in here and I can edit that template if I wanted to add something. That wasn't a great example because I didn't add anything. Whew. That was a whole lot of UI. All right, might be a bug. I think I have an image. And so the same thing, so I can put an image into the template and then every image, every template with that. Oh, actually, I think, let's see what happened. Yeah, it updated the template. And that's one of the things where, all right, and so you still get that edge to edge thing. And so that's a page template you can do, and this is where like patterns can also come in if you have, like let's say you're doing like a landing page and you always have like a certain button that you want to include there. You can create a pattern that uses that button. I think right now I'm editing the page. So that's one thing we want to make sure it's clear what part you're editing. I clicked on edit page. I come back here, you can edit the template. I'm going kind of quick, so I apologize if that is too much. I can't see the chat, so I'll assume I'm doing great.
You're doing great, Marcus. They say you're doing God's work and that your bravery doing a live tech demo is amazing. Keep it up. You're an inspiration for us all. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So like, let me see if I can have, I don't know if there's any patterns with this. So usually you can add patterns here. So if you wanted like, there we go. So if you wanted like an image left, an image right, you can insert these patterns into a specific template. And then whenever the template loads, it can get those patterns or however you're doing it. There's also reusable blocks is another method of inserting common pieces. And for both patterns and reusable blocks, there's there's a couple of good posts here. This probably won't be the best idea to go here now because it won't be up front, but there's a couple of good tips in here. Oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but there you go, about block patterns. And then I think Yoan posted one probably a couple weeks before this. So we're trying to post a couple like how to build like things like this. And so the idea would be like you can download and install a pattern that has this kind of title text image, kind of a nice layout, and then automatically apply that to one of your templates. And getting that, and this is wordpress.org/news. And if you search for a pattern, here's another pattern that you can put something like that in, and then you can just drop that in, and then people can edit the actual content part when they're inserting that in.
Marcus, can you make the browser a little bit bigger or bump up the text a little bit?
Better?
Yeah, thank you. I'm past my prime. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm also, I can't do the UI part. So at the top, I may not be able to help with that, but the text here, I can do it. So, but it's wordpress.org/news.
I just dropped a link to it, so
yeah, thank you.
Should help.
Yeah, so both of those, and then there's a reusable blocks ones too. And so that's the idea of like when we talked about patterns, I think Sean was mentioning that patterns is the exciting thing. And this is where I think developers and designers and theme builders, they don't have to worry about building larger pieces necessarily. And there's room for large pieces, but you can also build like just a small design pattern of like, okay, let's get some of these really cool kind of layouts and these really cool things you can build. And there might be small pieces and there's still room for that kind of, okay, I just want this little bit, something, this looks really cool. How can I build that with my photo and get that installed? All right. I'm going to jump to an even more dangerous demo, and we'll build a theme live. I'm going to admit Warren. Welcome, Warren. All right. There's a repo, WordPress theme experiments. These are, so the page templates and patterns and all that stuff is available now-ish if you use a Gutenberg plugin. And we expect all that to be available in 5.8 in some form or not. So that's exciting. Block themes is more of the full site editor and what we'd probably expect in 5.9. So just kind of setting some expectations. Theme experiments, github.com, WordPress theme experiments. All of these are kind of block themes. There's actually a handy little new theme script, which you can run. I have this checked out locally. Is my terminal large enough for people to see also? Or do you want me to bump that up? I'll bump it up. I don't mind.
That looks good, yeah.
All right. So if you run that script, it'll prompt you to create, let's do a SF Meetup theme and demo theme. All right. I'm not going to put all that in. All right. So this gives me a new theme right here, SF Meetup theme. I am going to copy that to my site. I have a test site somewhere over here, I hope.
And just to be clear, this is no, you don't need command line anything to do any of this.
Oh, no.
This some shortcuts.
Yeah. I'm doing this in all right.
He's just showing off.
And this is just a, yeah, I tend to do all command line stuff, and I tend to do like, I don't know, I'm just weird. All right. So I copy my theme over, and if I select that new theme, right here is one I created, activate it. Now this is like the block theme. This is like a block-based theme, and it will give me a generic site that looks very kind of generic, but it's pretty cool. We got a theme. And then to edit it, you can now use, when you start a block-based theme, you get this site editor beta now shows up. And again, I'm using the Gutenberg plugin, and all this is kind of expected for 5.9. So this is kind of a taste of things to come. So the site editor, did I click it? Maybe not. Will load up, and then it loads your entire theme like this. It's telling you the templates you're using, and then it also in here, like I'm clicked into a template part, and it changed up here to say the header. So that one is pretty cool. I can show you what this looks like. Sites test. I should have just moved here. So the theme I generated does generate a couple of pieces. It generates in the templates. It generates 2 templates. an index template, which is this one, the overall index page, and then also singular. So if you're familiar with WordPress theme development, these map to the PHP kind of template hierarchy. So the singular is just this single page view. So if you look at the site here, this is the index template, and then singular template is this one here, just a single page view. So while I'm in here, I can change different aspects of this, and then it will reflect. So the way you're kind of building your theme is by changing pieces in here. This is the query block that that Anne was talking about. And the query block is, it maps to the query, like the WP query. So you can say which kind of types you want to show. You can say how that you want to sort it. You can map it to different categories or tags, to certain authors or anything like that. So this is a really, really powerful tool. So if you're building a theme, you can say, oh, I want to build a page with just this category of post. And then you can just come in here and say, oh, I only want a page with WordPress posts. My test site isn't that good. There's not much content on it. I have another one, but up here is the post title, the site title, and other aspects. The kind of cool thing you can do is, someone is asking about what their favorite feature was. And this one I really do like, and it is the content size and the layout. So there's a setting file called theme.json. Right now it's called experimental theme.json, and it's called experimental because it might change. There's some tweaks and things happening to it as we kind of develop. So we just, until it's kind of finalized, we'll have this kind of experimental name. But in here, there's a layout, content size and width. So if we change this, sorry. And then inside of here, I can click. So this is the structure of the site, right? So inside of here, the header, I can tell it to inherit that layout. And then inside of this, see if this works. Yeah, okay. No. I think I need to put this in a group. So let's just do it for the header. So then I can save it. And this is the multi-site saying I'm saving it. And then when I view that page, it'll automatically, the header should automatically inherit that layout width, right? Let's do it.
You notice how right now, Marcus, you're having to switch between like making changes and then going to a new tab. This is the preview problem. That
it's not a problem in my book, but I'm weird. I don't mind doing it. This is a very common, and I don't know, it doesn't matter. We don't have to talk about it. It's how I work. Let me go. What am I doing here? I want to edit the singular template part. All right. So let's go. I'm sorry. Site editor. If I come up here, I can select templates. I want to select the singular template. And this looks similar to that other page template. So these are all kind of inherent in the same part. I want to put this content into a single column, right? So I'm going to add a group block. The group block is like your it's like a section block. In here, I can specify. Whoops, select my group block. I can say what kind of div I want it. Say this is main, right? And then I'm gonna move that up. I'm gonna move it up. I'm gonna put the title in that block. Drag and drop. And I'm gonna put the content in that block. All right, and I want the title above the content. And then for the group, I want the group to inherit the layout also. All right, so this is going to be a single post, and I'm just saying inherit the default layout. Save it, save it. So now I didn't do the layout on the index post yet, but on a single post, I didn't do it for the title here too. So, but I'm getting the content kind of wrapped to that aspect, right? Let's edit this post. Hold on. I type fast. All right. let's see, update that. And now, I'm sorry. So I'm getting the content to wrap. I can come into here and now I can change my content size. Let's make it really small. And then if I reload over there, it will automatically change my content. I just did a little bit. I said really small. Then it automatically wraps the content too. And so this is kind of a really cool feature. You say, wait a minute, what's that wide size? I wish I saw the chat because I'm sure Sean just said, wait a minute, what's that wide size? So in the post, what you can do is add an image. Let's add my image again. And then you might be familiar in here, you can have like a wide size. And so now this is, it's not great with the white image, but it does go, you can see this edge is beyond that. So if I update, and then I view the post again, oh, this didn't work. It's funny because I ran into the same problem. I was doing like, when I learned this, I ran into the same exact problem. I need the grouping to be outside. So you can imagine my demo better. I actually want this, I want the content is also inheriting this. I want this to be outside of the group. Let's just do, whoa. Come on. Drag and drop. It doesn't always work. I'm sorry. There we go. We're outside the group. Let's add our block again. Post content. I want this post content to inherit. What happened, it's probably not the best for the demo, but the group kind of shrunk everything into that. And so then the post content can't like grow beyond it. So you need the post content to have the layout settings on just that, not inside the group, which has the layout settings also. Hopefully I explained that nicely, but save it, go back to my page here. And then if I reload, let's try this again. Make sure my image is width, wide width. Let's do full width because that will be actually even easier to see. And then so the awesome part of this, you can see it here. It's going over that edge, right? I used a white image with a white background. So you can see this is beyond the text here. Does that make sense? Now, the nice thing about this is I did no CSS to get all this layout stuff, right? It's all just coming free with it. So you can focus, and that's what the kind of overall goal is, to be able to focus a lot more of people's energies into actually designing and building cool layouts and building other things, and not having to worry so much about like, oh, how do I get this to align left, but not too far left or not so far right. And there's a whole bunch of other pieces like spacer blocks and other things you can add in to allow you like to kind of make these design tools. They're still like rough and more powerful, but it still allows you to do things without having to like, you're not going down into CSS necessarily to say like, okay, how do I do all these align widths and set these margin rights and pull it full and all these other aspects of it. So I think to me, that's like the larger kind of most exciting feature, is being able to do like all these more powerful features without having to, you can just kind of focus on what you're trying to do without having to like dig too deep. And there's a ton more, and the demo is probably almost at the limit. I want to leave time for questions. So I will stop there and switch back. And what do we got?
All right, hold on. You caught me off guard there. Please move on. All right, so Deborah asks, will the templates be exportable for developers who build similar landing pages on multiple different sites?
Yes. I'm going to share my screen again. That was one thing I did want to share. The templates. So this is kind of an interesting. The templates are just they're just the markup that you would see in Gutenberg. So you can just copy this template, and it's nothing fancy. It's just the HTML markup. And actually, so I changed. If you will play, and I highly recommend to like go to the theme experiments, generate a theme. You don't have to generate a theme. You can just download 2021 blocks. You can download any of these themes, and you can start playing with it. And so I highly recommend doing that. The way the template parts kind of work, is on your file system, you have these files, and this is your theme. You download them. These are fixed files, right? What I'm doing here is not changing these files. What I'm doing here is updating the WordPress database with changes. These are the changes I made, right? Here's a template I made earlier. Here's this, here's that, right? So if I copied this directory, which is what a theme normally is a directory of stuff, you wouldn't get all the changes I made on this site. This experience we're working on improving. So this is not necessarily the final, but it's important to know what you're editing. So the changes I made in Singular, I can come in here and click edit. Here's what the changes I made look like. If I go in here to code editor, that's my whole template. It's right there. I changed the group. Here's a group that I added. When I click the layout equals true, this is what it's adding in there. When I click the post content, layout equals true, that's what I added. So to persist these, I come in here, copy, and I actually just copy them down to my thing. And you don't have to use a command line. You can use however you wish, but then you just replace that, paste that part in, and then I've kind of persisted that, and then I can copy, anyone can copy that singular file. So you can check this in as a theme, you can do it as anything, and they would get that. And the same thing with like the headers or the template parts are the other part. So those were the templates. Oh, if you look at a template too. Sorry, block templates. We'll look at the index one. In here, it mentions a template part, right? So it's mentioning the header. Hopefully that's readable. I know it's gray on black, but so it's saying template part, and it's saying the slug header. And so that's including this template parts from this directory, right? So there's a header file inside of there. Template parts. It's much harder to type when people are watching. And that has the same tags that you're looking at. So these are the same kind of Gutenberg block tags that one would see when you're in the Gutenberg editor. So if I'm in here and I go to the header template, I didn't modify that header template part, so it doesn't show as changed in here. So this singular one, I can also trash it from here. So let's say I've edited index and I'm like, oh, this is a mess. I just want to go back to what's on the pure theme thing. I can just go in here and trash this. Right, and then it'll just go back and just default to whatever is in the theme because there's not something in the database. That's explaining a lot, and I apologize for being too quick on that. But it's kind of like important to see like how these things come from, and then this goes to one of the other questions of being able to schedule these things and doing revisions and all that stuff. Eventually, all the kind of general postings that you have to be able to like, oh, it would be nice to be able to schedule a header change to take place in, tomorrow at 6 a.m. so I don't have to wake up. Or might be able to keep this hidden so people can see it as a draft and do all the kind of stuff you do with the post. The goal is you'll eventually be able to build and get that to like on the template parts and all the other pieces of the kind of site editor. So there's a lot of like really exciting stuff we can do with this. So hopefully that answered the question.
All right, thank you. We also have a question from David. He raised his hand, so I'm going to unmute him so he can ask.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I was just curious about custom post types. If I wanted to have a template for a custom post type to treat the layout a little bit different, so you can do, single, in a theme, you can have a single dash post type slug.php. Would that have to be there? Would there have to be an HTML file as sort of a placeholder for that? Or could I just create it in the database?
Right now, you can just Yeah, the template hierarchy will check the database first. And so it's a very similar template hierarchy. So you
Okay.
could just do it locally in the database, which is a pretty awesome feature. Like I helped, I don't know if you've seen the WordPress briefing on the news site. I helped kind of set that up in the site. And we had to do some, like it's running on a pretty old theme, but we had to go back and edit the theme. Like, oh, only on the podcast page, we want to show this header. And so then we had to create a whole new theme and do all this stuff. I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice if we had this new theme, because all I would do is just create the new template on the site itself, and then you just, if you name it as you just said, that, you know, whatever the category might be or whatever the custom post type might be, it will find it based on the same kind of template hierarchy.
So potentially a plugin could create its own
templates,
placeholder for that, or at least a template, you know, a starter template for the user. I mean, ideally, you'd want it to like sync with the you know, the colors and styles that are used on the rest of the site, so that you're not, you know, having a radically different appearance for that post type.
Yeah, you will. And that's where the global styles will come in, and that's the theme JSON. I didn't go into. There's a lot in there to kind of standardize a palette, so a theme.
Okay.
You said plugin. There's some. Would you do it in a plugin or a theme or however you do it? But you would be able to create your own. Usually themes will create a palette. You probably could do it in a plugin. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. Okay. And then use that palette within a plugin is the way I would think about it. I would think a theme would set the colors for that theme, and then your plugin then would say, okay, give me the theme palette, and then you'd be able to use that as a chooser. And that's happening. I'm pretty sure now too, with a lot of blocks and stuff.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Lisa asks, right now you create the page and apply the template. Is there a way to apply a template to all pages or posts of a certain type? For example, all category pages or all posts in a certain category?
Probably.
Right now, I would say it's not yet in place, but it's planned. Like, it's one of those things that design needs to work out, like what the access points are for all these sorts of things and how to assign things. So I'm sure there's some way to do it programmatically, but in terms of actually having an interface to manage that, that's one of those things that's in flux. As far as I know, Marcus, I don't know if you...
I haven't edited. I've only done them as a new template and then kind of selecting it. I don't know what would happen if you named it default template, if it would actually work or not. Okay. I'll try it after. I want to subject you all to my, hey, let's play with this and see what happens.
All right, Laura had a question. There was a question mark in there. So full site editing template might include changes to header, footer, sidebar, as well as potentially content placeholders versus a series of blocks that has been grouped into a reusable block to be strictly content template? Or in short, will there be more than one way to make a template depending on what exactly it is you want?
I think the answer will be there will be more than one way, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I tried to answer that in the channel because I'm having a hard time understanding the specifics. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I could have been more clear on that one. Never counter on mute. That's bad. No, I guess right now I sort of make quasi templates using grouping together a bunch of reusable blocks, and I'll use that as a template, but obviously that's strictly content driven. So I guess what I'm saying is you could make a template that is both header, footer, content, or you could just make a template that's strictly content, I guess, is what I'm saying. The two things are not mutually exclusive. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concepts that is shared between a template part, a pattern, and a reusable block, and trying to, each has slightly different nuanced ways that they get used, and trying to figure out what's the best way. And it usually depends on what you're wanting, and there's not a simple answer to say use this for this, use this for this, because they can all then, as we're saying, intermix together. So it gives a lot of great power, and I think that's what we're trying to, everyone's trying to figure out, okay, how can we have all these great tools, what's the best way to use it for just updating the content, and what's the best way to do it? Okay, just updating and sending the page. And a lot of these pieces too will, as we're learning from everyone, and people start using it, there's gonna be requests that come in and say like, oh, we want to lock down this feature, or we want to lock down this because we're creating a theme and we only want the person to update X, Y, or Z, or whatever it might be. And so trying to figure out where those needs are. And that's where having these different pieces like, okay, reusable block, you might be able to use and change any way you want. But a template, you may not want a user to be able to go in and like change the whole layout of the site, or something along those lines. So we're working on it as we go, and we'll develop, kind of best practices for each as we go and learn from everyone too. So.
All right. Hey, Laura, you have the next question too, if you wanted to ask about the breadcrumb trail.
I think they kind of answered it. I just,
Okay.
I use the breadcrumb trail. I mean, there's one at the top and one at the bottom. I use the one at the top. I'm more of a visual grid kind of learner that way. But I'm just picturing it's going to be kind of important to know where you're at. Am I in the header? Am I in the sidebar? Am I in the footer? Am I in the content container? Is there going to be some sort of visual demarcation on that so that you kind of know where you are, like by weight or color, or
it's being actively worked on. So that's one of the, I know, open issues on like, okay, how do we, signify that more? There's also I'm going to share my screen again just because I can. Sorry. There's also this list view. And if you're in the site editor, they're working on or there is, I don't know why I said that, working on it. There's a persistent list view. So you can leave this up and it kind of gives you a very clear sense of where you are in the thing. And this is only in the site editor now. I think there's a ticket open to possibly move this to the post editor also into other spots. But this is a really useful, and if you click it, you can jump into different pieces. There's work being suggested, it's not being worked on yet, to make this drag and drop, which would be really awesome, right? I had trouble creating that group and putting things in the direct spots that we want them. Having this be drag and drop would be really nice to say, oh, I want to create this group and I want to drag this piece into that. So this is a really nice, we're calling it list view. A really nice one. I would always use this one down at the bottom to figure out where I was. But the list view is definitely like a pretty awesome new feature. So.
I will also add they are working on ways to navigate in and out of like template parts versus, so if you're editing like something that impacts the whole site, making that clear in the experience. And that's something that's a lot of design issues open for and a pretty complex problem to solve. So there should be some visual friction so that when you're going in and out of editing context.
All right.
I'm drunk. I like that. I'm drunk with power. Yes.
Deborah,
my job, they never give me share rights. I just can't. Go ahead, another question.
Yeah, another question from Deborah. She asks, how easy is it to change some of the features for mobile versus desktop view?
There are open issues for that, but that's not yet something that's in place.
There's some preview buttons to allow you to kind of switch into a mobile view and kind of tablet view and desktop view. It's an area that needs refinement for sure. And it doesn't, and that's one, we were talking about this one-to-one preview of your editing view to what you actually see. That area definitely needs more work. Yeah, as Sean's saying, we're looking at a way to do just one view to say, okay, what is the one kind of mobile view there?
All right, Lisa was asking for a little more clarification. She said, did you say templates is in the current Gutenberg release, or does she need to download a beta from GitHub?
No, you can do the 10.4 got released, I think yesterday. You can do all of this in 10.4. So the Gutenberg plugin's considered a beta, but you can, if you just install the plugin on your site, you can do everything I did today. You do need to install a block theme, block-based theme. I don't know if
TT1 is on the plug. It's on the theme repo.
That's the exact question I was thinking.
I so yeah, if you do
TT1 blocks in the theme repo, you should be able to install that directly from your WordPress. So then, if you install the plugin, install the TT1 blocks, and you will be able to. If someone didn't already paste it there, someone did. And then you can do all of this and play around with it and see all the kind of full site editing. This stuff though is not expected for 5. The block theme, the larger piece, is not expected for 5.8. The block theme in the site editor part is probably 5.9. The template editing in that is expected in 5.8, and a lot of the features are very, very similar between the two. So it's all very, very shared.
I would just note to be careful to use Gutenberg on a live production site unless you're really comfortable with code. Like I, generally speaking, use it on a test site.
Yeah, the caveat, I would totally agree with that. And I'm building a block theme that I'm going to change my site over to. I think it's fairly stable. It's not like from a code standpoint, from like losing data in that aspects. I think it's actually a really good spot.
You can email Marcus if you have any trouble.
I think the issues we're working on fixing now are like kind of usability, like, oh, it's confusing. How do I get this? How do I do that? And like all these, like kind of that discovery and kind of trying to improve that is a big next steps for us.
All right. Well, that's the questions that I was able to find. How do people find you on Twitter?
I'm MKaz, MKAZ.
Also, check him out on Twitch. Just gonna throw it out there.
I'm on
I
Twitch.
dropped the link earlier, but
yeah, I will live stream on Twitch sometimes. And that one's MKaz 7000. I delete all my tweets after 2 weeks, so I'm weird.
Right.
Hey, Marcus.
Yes.
Asking as a bunch of different people, including a post status guy who's trying to write a summary of all of this for mentioning tomorrow. Some broader based questions. What would you say is the difference, if there is any, a learning curve between developing a theme now for sale or not for sale? I was trying to avoid.
It's fine to sell.
I was trying to avoid theme force, but think of any agency who sells a wide range of more than basic WordPress themes.
Yeah.
If they want to build something that is block based, is it the same skill set, or is there more JavaScript involved, or how steep, or if any, is the line to climb?
I think depending on what you want to do, I think there's actually less technical skill needed and more kind of design skill. I think the more the work can be done directly in the editor itself. And I didn't dive too deep into that myself, but actually just going in and like laying out images and adding them in and saying a line right, a line left, or put padding in and doing like getting that design aspect. I think that's going to be, and the overall hope is to have that be what people focus on, because that's where the real value is, we see. Like, I don't think technically like writing in CSS that does margin this and that, whatever, is not really the value. It's that like the end result is the value you want, right? You want your theme to be able to do X, Y, or Z. And so being able to come with those kind of fresh ideas and coming up with like, okay, how do we do these cool layouts and how do we do these other aspects? I think there'll be a lot of value still for theme developers, and I think it's just going to shift from being able to do slightly more technical stuff, and the shift will be to doing more advanced design things, and so kind of pushing the envelope that way.
So
does that answer what you're thinking?
Well, I wasn't thinking anything. I was asking an opinion. This is one of those. Was it one of those This is not a statement. This is not a question, but a statement type of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I can see. Well, a lot of WordPress themes exist now that try to put functionality inside of a theme, where really from a broad-based rule that designs the look and feel is a theme, and how something works belongs in a plugin. So it sounds like to me that's a philosophy that's going to be enforced a little bit more when you're going into block-based theme territory, which I guess means then, do you think there'll be more block-based themes? You know how this works. Somebody's going to make a theme, and then they're going to make a demo that's going to say, here's all the plugins that you need to go along with it that include these blocks. I mean, I guess that's not a question. I guess that's just more deriving from your statement.
Yeah, well,
tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Which is, I don't think it's wrong. But I don't think it's also not accurate either. I think there's different pieces, right?
My wife tells me that all the time, so I understand that statement.
I think it depends on what, like how, like I think a lot of functionality will move to blocks, not necessarily even plugins. You deliver a block through a plugin, but you can do a lot through the blocks. So if you wanted, I don't have a great thought on a function at the moment. Like a podcast, that you can do it as a block, right? You can say, okay, upload your video to this thing, and then you can create different aspects. I think there's still be a lot of value on on themes and structuring content and data and how it's presented and those aspects of it. And there's also people, it depends on also who your target audience is, right? I don't think you're, everyone's going, you're moving around on the screen, David. I don't think
sorry,
people
I had coffee. I'm sorry.
I don't think there's going to be groups of people who do not want to do even the theme editor stuff and don't want to, you know, break anything. They just want to go in and they want to just update some content on a landing page to say like, okay, now we're going to be X, now we're going to be Y, or I just want to update the address or whatever it might be. Like they don't want to do like any design work at all. And they want to hand that off to someone else, right? But now I think also you have that is a great, that person can now like, or will be able to like, okay, you create a theme, you lock the other pieces down, they just go in and edit that one piece of content, and they won't need a developer to go in and edit a PHP file and add this in or whatever they might have done previously. So to me, that's a great win for other people. Then the developer can like, okay, you can focus on more interesting problems than, you know, updating content too, right? You can add more value that way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have more questions in the chat.
And
No,
also
I
this
think-
is, I was gonna say, this is all, I'm just like one guy and one guy's opinion too. Like, I mean, the overall WordPress is a huge, huge community. Even like we all shape it too, right? Even everyone here can like offer input and say like, okay, here's the different feedback and thoughts and how are we going to use it? Like, and who's going to create what, and all that aspects of it kind of go into building what WordPress is. So. Sorry, go ahead, guy. I cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No more questions?
No, I think that's all the questions, because Anne answered the last one for Olivia, so she seems that worked out well.
All right. Let's give a hand for Marcus. Great demo and everything. I know everyone. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
I truly learned a lot, and Anne as well learned a lot tonight, and it's amazing the work you guys are putting in. Like they said earlier, if anyone wants to volunteer and help out, there's a WordPress Slack channel where you'll see in the links and in the notes and the email we'll send after this meetup, where you can find them, and you guys can definitely help out. This is, as you guys know, it's a game changer here. So there's a lot of new and interesting things, nothing to be afraid of, it seems like, because as soon as that update comes, I'm building out a WordPress site now, and I know I'm thinking about, okay, this coming, I'm not gonna just jump ahead and upgrade, but it doesn't seem to hurt anything, and that's great to know. First, that's really awesome. Before we move on, go out for the night, we have Joe Simpson here. Joe.
Hey, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Hi, everybody. This was great. Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Marcus. What a great presentation. When I saw it pop up on the Meetup, I reached out to Dave and was like, hey, I got to get a piece of that. So great job.
Next time, Joe, when you ask me if you can get a piece of that, put it in context for me.
But that was great. It's so great to see it demonstrated. I think what we do out here in Santa Cruz, all of our events, we focus on beginners and new people because we're a relatively new community. So it's always awesome to see somebody demo it and sort of explain it to us in layman's terms. So that's awesome. I was going to also mention, I am working with Anne on another project. We're doing a call for organizers. We're doing an initiative with historically Black colleges and universities. So imagine it's like a WordCamp geared at students this fall. So we're looking to get organizers on that. We're going to post information on our site coming up. It's going to be listed on Central as well. And then secondly, here in Santa Clarita, our 3rd annual WordCamp Santa Clarita is coming up in June or July. So keep an eye out for that too. We're going to be focusing on accessibility as one of our primary tracks, as well as talking about full site editing and all that kind of stuff. So bring your presentations and we'll welcome them all. So thanks.
All right. Thanks, Joe. All right. Special thanks to all the meetups once again that came and helped get the word out, as well as our speakers. Once again, everyone, please give Marcus and Ann a round of applause here. I'm trying not to make so much noise. Oh, thanks to GoDaddy Pro, of course, for being one of our gracious hosts here, and as well as giving out a great prize. Like, I think it was a gift certificate this time, David. And the winners of the contest will be emailed, and you'll get all the details sometime very soon. You know, I also like to thank Guy and David and all Joe, of course, and everyone who helped put this meetup together. This was quite a large one, a good group here. We'll have the video of this recording up on our YouTube channel. You will also get a link to that through the email, and I'm just going to post it right here in the Slack, so you guys can pretty much subscribe and hit the bell and get notified when it's uploaded. We'll get that out as soon as possible. If you guys don't know, Zoom takes some time for it to process, and we'll do some slight editing from the beginning and towards this end here, so you won't have to hear me dribble off. But that's it for tonight, guys. No game show tonight. We'll have it back up tomorrow. I know it's sad. It's sad to hear David. Not here, David.
David's still woozy from first COVID shot. I think.
Yeah.
I think they mixed in a little alcohol in there.
But wait until you get the second one.
Oh, I'm gonna collect them all. I'm gonna collect all the vaccines like Thanos did with the Infinity Stones. I think that's what I'm going for. I did want to insert though, before Gene finishes, that we do the WordPress Mega Meetup every month, and the meetup organizers can say hi in chat right now because I know you're tired. But everyone from Guy to Joe, even John from Vegas, they help out big time, and they barely get mentioned for all the work that they do. Guy, for example, not to put pressure on him, but he usually takes all the links that we drop in chat, even the ones I drop in that aren't very good quality, and he assembles it all and he sends it in a summary in an email to everybody. He may not do that this time, but somebody will. But he usually does it, and he deserves a lot of credit for it. Gene has been a rock solid volunteer and organizer of WordCamp Miami for years. And the fact that he's handling the meetups is fantastic. I can't tell you. I can't thank Gene enough. The WordPress community doesn't get a lot of, they hear about all the core people that write the blogs and stuff, but really it's a lot of the people at, not to sound insulting, because I'm here too, at this level that really supports the community. And without people like this, WordPress would not be at 41% of the web, which it had just turned 41% this week, I think, or something like that. Really a shout out to not just the speakers and people doing the hard work at Automattic and at the project too, at the project level, but all the other people who helped out tonight.
Totally agree. Yep.
And we'll have a meetup. Awesome. We'll have our next thing on meetup.com, and we'll send out the notes and everything through emails, and all the meetup organizers that invited you here will distribute those as well.
Yeah. With that said, we'll see you guys next month.
Thanks for putting this on. Appreciate it.
I'll move you sooner.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Ann and Marcus. Thank you.
Thanks again, Marcus.
Thank you, Ann and Marcus.